this focuses on. It talks about how there is significant change, both from a tech point of view and actual customer behavior point of view, in terms of how they're expecting service experience, customer experience, product experience to change in that context. And these live conversations with industry leaders is all about bringing those insights and frameworks to you such that you know how to actually enable these things as part of your work. So today we are very lucky to actually have Abhishek Ayagri, a seminal product leader from PayPal days and many other companies that he has worked with. He's built multiple companies. In fact, he's founder of a company called Peach, which is all about building tech-enabled, cutting-edge, new-age customer experience, which integrates WhatsApp, integrates AI. Very interesting work that he's doing, and this is a perfect platform to be able to have him and his insights to give people context of how they can do something that and even enable their customer experience with the platform that he's building in that context as well. So without much ado, Abhishek, would love to hear a bit about you and what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Amber, for inviting me to your first chat. I wish the Futurist team all the very best. About me, so me and Amber go a while back. So we used to work at PayU. I have essentially been in the fintech space in India for a long time. So I have been with PayPal, as Amber mentioned, and then I moved back to India where I spent time with Citrus, which eventually got acquired by PayU. And then the entrepreneurial bug bit me. I started a company called YBank, which got acquired. It was a B2B fintech, and it got acquired by ClearTax back in 2021-22. So I joined ClearTax and did a bit of lending there. I led everything payments and lending at ClearTax. I served my time there and I moved out. And then I've been dabbling with multiple stuff. And then I figured out what I really wanted to do was something very different about, and something very different in terms of how customer experiences are shaping as well, right? So and one thing led to the other, and I joined my co-founder Suresh in building Peach. Peach essentially is a simple platform which enables any growth team to build AI agents on WhatsApp. Why we picked this problem? If I have to take a step back, think about how a typical customer journey happens today. Everybody think, okay, I will build an app or a website, and you run some ads, and customers will come to the platform. It doesn't really work that way, right? I mean, you have to build your growth team essentially has to come in and build a whole lot of workflows to get the customer from running an ad to your website and signing up. They have to build an IVR team which calls customers. They have to build an onboarding flow. There are various touch points where a customer can drop. So if you think about this entire journey, right, it's actually an amalgamation of multiple systems that have to work together really well to make the best out of your systems and convert a customer. And that's essentially the shift that has happened with AI. With AI now, you can think of any problem, right? You can deploy an agent to get the work done. So the whole landscape of how we think about customer experience has changed, and we are taking baby steps towards it by enabling such experiences work for our customers on WhatsApp as our initial nudge, initial wedge, I would say.
Very interesting, Abhishek. And again, thank you for coming for our first episode. And these are bang on. These are the insights we're looking to hear, and I'm quite sure the audience who is going to go through this 30 minutes of absolute gems coming from your experience would be in love with that. So you just mentioned the first question, the first thought in my head, and you've been there. You've been in the heydays of building apps. You build websites. You build web commerce. You have built payment gateway, which is interstitial experiences. You build all of that as well. Why does that need to change? Is that not running fine? What's going on?
Great question, right? If you think about how, if you think it, I would take a step back and turn the entire conversation to how your customers view the problem itself, right? For a lot of products that are out there in the market, think of things we speaking about fintech, think about a loan journey, right? As a customer, I don't want to really interact with many different apps or download different apps to get my work done. I just need a loan. And to get a loan as a business, you should, try and convert me wherever I am, right? And wherever I am, meaning wherever I'm interacting more, rather than getting me to download a completely new thing, right? So that's what is the fundamental challenge that we are trying to solve. How do you get customers to interact and convert at the point where they already are, which is WhatsApp? Rather than moving them to a platform where they are not familiar. There are two reasons, right? One, the cost of converting a customer, CAC as we call it, is going high. But especially for products which are undifferentiated in nature. Think of a loan or an insurance or any of these investment products that are out there. The fundamental product behind the scenes is the same, whether it's a personal loan or an agri loan or a gold loan or an insurance. So as a customer, why are you making me come to your platform and download the app, which I'm going to be using very infrequently? Rather, I just need a loan, and I use a simple platform like a chatbot or any of WhatsApp or Telegram or any of the channels that I'm more familiar with and I frequently use these platforms. Why can't you convert me there? And that's number one. Secondly, these platforms essentially, at least the customers want a lot of personalization today. They don't want the same flow for everything that you offer for everybody. For example, if I'm expecting a gold loan, right? I'm looking for a gold loan. I don't want to. I might have a very different requirement as compared to you. I might be a high value customer. I might be looking for transferring my loan from somebody else. I might be having a better credit score as well. So, given that every individual is different, you as a product leader, you cannot build a generic user experience for the same persona of customer. For a different persona of customer, right? How do you personalize your experience is the whole game out there, and that's where I think the world has changed. It's enabling more product leaders to build using AI to build more and more personalized journeys to customize or give a more personalized experience for your customers.
Very interesting, very interesting. But see, Abhijit, honest question, because I work with a lot of clients and you have a lot of clients with your product as well. I still see a lot of push about building these silo apps.
Yeah.
So are people going in the wrong direction? What is this going to cost them?
Well, I think at a very fundamental level, right? I don't think this whole aspect about building apps is going to go anywhere out. But for example, think of an app like Correct, right? If the user is more and more familiar with the platform, he's going to come to the platform each and every time for doing certain things, and there is value that the app is going to give him each and every time. Then it makes sense for him to use that app again, and for you as a business as well to enhance that experience. But when it comes to somebody who is just coming for a one-off use case, or maybe for a one-off onboarding use case, or let's say you're trying to just offer a product where I'm as a user, I just want that point solution and go back. So why do you need to create friction for the user and build that spend your entire development bandwidth to build those experiences, right? So I would essentially rather use a different conversational or different experiential platform to get the user to do that activity. And when the user is actually more tied in, more activated, or more engaged, I would then get them to download my app. So it has to be a middle ground where you have your app for more engaged users, and for some of the other, like a very early user who's still figuring out or trying to understand, am I the right fit for your product? I would rather engage them wherever they are.
Interesting. And this perspective is, almost poles apart with a lot of companies pushing towards wanting to build super apps.
Correct.
Where they want to put more and more features and more abilities and more fulfillment into one single storefront or single thing than a federated model where you are serving the customer where they are, where you are trying to give people exactly what they need where they are. Very interesting on that. But now, is this a perspective which comes mostly from the way technology and business interests are shifting? Or do you see a shift in actual customer behavior which indicate that this is needed?
I think both ways, right? I mean, of course, it has become, from a business point of view, it has become super easy to to write code, given that AI is writing most of the code for anyway, right? But having said that, why? I mean, you are an user experience expert out there. As a customer, when you come to an app, let's say a Google Pay app or a Phone Pay app or any of the super apps out there, how many how many features do you actually use on a day-to-day basis, right? You probably would use one or two features, and you might not be even aware of the other features, right? So how do you get? I mean, the primary challenge which most business users would have is, oh, how do I get more and how do I increase engagement, right? How do I get people to discover my app in a better way? That is one way to look at it. The other way is you start in a conversational manner, start engaging with the user to figure out what is their core problem. And depending on the problem, you create a personalized journey on your app, right? So that's a new way to think about this entire problem itself, and that's how I think product leaders should think in the new world. Not looking at, oh, it's easy to build or write code or build apps, so let us bombard and build like a super app for everything, right? It's not That's not the way things would work, and that's not the way customers actually think about experiencing new features in a product.
Absolutely. And I've been hearing from some product leaders that their traffic numbers, both on their websites and apps, are progressively going down. And I wonder if there's an actually association between what you're saying and actual behavior that you're seeing on the ground, that maybe actual patient levels, interest levels from end users who interact with these very complicated, big siloed approaches towards delivering experiences going down.
Absolutely. I think if you look at the stats, right, I think there was a global statistic which mentioned that 1 in 4 apps are getting deleted from your phone. Of course, the phone's memories are getting increased, but how many apps do you use on a daily life, right? I mean, maybe 10% of the apps that are out there on your phone. So there is more. I mean, so essentially, as a business, you are trying to get the attention of the user, and they might download your app, but they're not engaging with your product feature, or that's something that you would want the user to experience. So there is always going to be a fundamental a gap between what you have built and where the user is. So how do you marry that in a very quick way? It's going to be the challenge for the business leaders out there, and that's how you should think about leveraging AI and building new conversational experiences to bridge this, the challenges.
Very interesting. I'll just pick up one nugget from what you have said, which is very, very interesting on that, because apps are almost all of these individual pieces of mind share, which each brand is expecting from the user. How many pieces can you break your mind into? Yeah, they will not, and there's only few of them which they will get. Now, second part, which you said, what's the correct way of building, whether it's agentic application or WhatsApp application, and you've been in the depth of it, you've been in the thick of it in terms of building WhatsApp flows, building agentic service experiences and all that. So what's in your mind? What's the correct way of delivering? And maybe you can even take an example from a particular industry or something that you may have worked with.
Thank you. I mean, honestly, in the conversation that I'm in, I'm a little biased because I'm building conversational flows. But having said that, having built apps and websites for driving user conversion, I think it started to make a lot of sense with AI itself, right? In the earlier world, when I was building, let's say, a lending journey, right? Typically, as a product guy, I would define the entire flow, an entire flow chart, which essentially would mean a IVR-ish kind of a journey for my customers, right? We say, hey, do this. If the user does this, take him to this. If this, do that. If this, do that, and kind of you break that value chain. But if you think about this challenge from a user perspective, They are not thinking about following a set path, right? They would completely come to your channel and with their problem. And if your bot or any of the platforms that you are deployed is not able to answer that question, one, your bot will essentially break, and it will cause a very bad user experience. User experience for your customer. Secondly, the user is frustrated as well because he thinks, "Oh, this is crap. I'm not going to come to this app again," right? And that is fundamentally changed now. Think of an example. Since you talked about an example, so build this with multiple enterprises, especially in the lending and insurance space. Think of a personal loan journey, right, or any kind of lending journey out there. Today, you would be running ads, and you would get them to your app. Instead of that, think of a click to WhatsApp ad. The user comes to WhatsApp and says, "Hey." The agent talks to the user in a very conversational way in any language that the user is comfortable with, and actually it can change it can mimic the same tonality or the same language which the user is speaking, right? That is the first aha moment. The second is it can actually understand, depending on the context where the user is coming, and start understanding more and more about what is the pain point of the user. Why have they come? What do they need? Do they need a personal loan? Why do they need a personal loan? Is it for some kind of an emergency? It can actually, based on the chat, it can actually score the customer or try to find out the intent behind the user, right? The third point is, based on the phone number that is out here with the agent, it can actually ping your own internal systems or your CRM and get more and more context about the user. Is he a repeat user? Is he a completely new user? And on the fly, it can essentially give a personalized experience to you. It can actually say, "Hey, Abhishek, I figured out that you already have some data in my system. We might be, in certain cases might say, okay, you already pre-qualify because I already have your data, and we can offer you a 2 lakh loan, and we can actually provide loan for you in the next 10 minutes. You just have to upload ABC documents," right? And that level of personalization was not possible earlier. I mean, earlier you had 10 steps to get to the user to, for the aha moment to say, "Okay, now I need a loan." Rather here, with getting into a channel where he already is present, and with certain identifiers like your phone number, and contact that you are providing me through your system, an agent can essentially have a much more powerful and personalized conversation with the end customer. The language of his.
It's very personalized, but it's also a real-time underwriting.
Absolutely.
The only question on that, and forgive my ignorance in that, I've heard that with if you're using transformers, if you're using LLM-based systems around there is an aspect of errors. There is hallucinations, there's biases, and when you're looking at something like underwriting, accuracy becomes important because you have to correctly assess and correctly determine what the eligibility is. Are there techniques and ways to handle that?
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially in a conversational experience, these challenges should be higher as compared to some of the other agentic frameworks, which are, you would have seen NA10 and other kind of frameworks, which are mostly used in the B2B world, where you say, unlike a conversational where, customer can throw anything at you, in an NA10 framework, you can technically solve this in a much better way. So there's less hallucination when you build a workflow for a business use case, whereas in a B2C or a customer use case, as you rightly said, there can be hallucinations. And the way to deal with this is you have very contextual and very goal-oriented agents built out for specific purposes, right? For example, think of a customer who's coming, and there could be one agent which is only supposed to be qualifying the lead, right? And figuring out if they're really interested in your product. And depending on the context, let's say the user is asking a question about an FAQ, right? And what are they interested? Why should I take a loan? There is another agent which is essentially answering all his support questions. So there are essentially multiple agents that are operating or orchestrating between each other and transferring the context between one another to provide the right kind of experience. What it does, one is it reduces hallucination. It will never go away because that's a fundamental nature of how the models are capable today. Because it is supposed to, by default, invent something if it doesn't understand, right? So one, you have multiple micro agents working together to solve the problem. The second is, how do you enable, provide more and more context and memory to the AI agents, right? That, if your system is able to do really well, instead of making multiple API calls via MCPs or whichever protocol, that is the game changer. If you are able to provide, build a contextual layer for your agents to provide, much better. It has been given more context about the lead of the customer. Then the chances of hallucination go down, honestly, right? And an ideal platform should be able to do one, build a crew of agents working together to solve a customer problem. Build a contextual layer, which is essentially a memory layer, which will have information about the customer as much as possible. Think of, let's say, data about how many times I came to the website, how many times I dropped out by adding something to the cart. Based on the phone number, how many orders I've done in the past. So if I have information in my memory layer and that is provided very contextually to the AI agent, it can have far better conversation with the customer. So if a platform is able to bridge or build superior capabilities in all these aspects, then the end result in terms of how the agent would behave would be far superior as compared to anybody building out any kind of agentic platform, right? And at a very fundamental level, that's the shift that is happening. If you think about it today, there are, especially in a place like Bangalore, everybody is doing AI, right? And building out the first product or the MVP has become super simple. But how do you get the AI agent to actually work for your customer or your business is the fundamental challenge, right? And that's where, as entrepreneurs, we are all striving to improve or getting to the ideal state of delivering what we promised to do.
It's a tough one, Abhishek. It's a tough one because, and I've been talking to clients, and a lot of perspectives are that AI implementation is only LLM. It's only about taking a Claude API or taking a OpenAI API, and pretty much you build in a chatbot where now instead of getting your work done from a CRUD-based approach, right, where you're manipulating information, you're pressing buttons and doing that, instead of that, you just talk about your goal and everything happens magically in that. Now, two parts to this question. Is this true? Is this how AI implementation is going to happen in all digital experiences, where it's going to wipe out and everything will become a chatbot? Is that true? And then I'll come to my second question. So why don't we talk about that first?
Well, obviously, it's not going to take away everything. There will be a human in the loop, and a good agentic platform has to figure out what responses can it handle, and where does it need a human in the loop to come and help, right? So, for example, if it is not able to answer a question, can it escalate the chat to a particular human where they can come in and respond? I'll give an example, right? A slightly different example, but one of our customers wanted to figure out a problem where they have a loan application, and you know how many pitfalls a typical loan application has, right? One, the business is thriving. It's an undifferentiated product. Everybody in the industry, every fintech is trying to sell a loan product because that's the only way to make money. Now, imagine you acquire a lead, you qualified them, now you get them to upload a bunch of documents, a KYC process is done, which itself has got so many pitfalls. And finally, at the last step, when the guy has been approved for a loan, they have not taken the loan. And you have no way to figure out, okay, why hasn't the user taken the loan? The only way to do this is, in the old world, you just have to call him, right? Or you email him, hey, your loan has been approved. Click a button, just get it in your bank in 2 seconds. How would you solve this problem at scale, right? Imagine, there's an event that is in your system which is saying the loan has been approved, but the user has not taken it, and then an agent gets triggered on WhatsApp. It chats with the user to figure out why the loan has not been approved, and then based on the context that the customer provides, you take the appropriate action. And we got mind-blowing insights from customers. So one of the insights was, hey, your processing fee was very high, and that's why I didn't really take your loan as compared to what the market offers. And now imagine if the agent is provided instruction that it can autonomously decide to waive off the processing fee, right? Or if it is not able to, if the processing fee, if it is not been, if the order value is higher and is not able to do it, immediately trigger a notification or an email to the business guy, and he can take the appropriate action. That is aha, right? Instead of the customer being called after 5 days, which typically happens, saying, "Hey, you didn't take the loan," immediately, an intervention is being done by the AI, and it can take the appropriate action. And that is not possible only by a wrapper on top of an LLM. You have to build systems in place and provide more and more contextual memory layer and data in your own platform, which essentially provides the capability for the agent to take the right call instead of making up something and which might affect your business metrics as well. So that's essentially the differentiator, or in terms of how you need to think about when it comes to building an agent.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So it's not just a chatbot, first of all. So that's thank you for that on that. And then the agentic ability, what I understand, is manifested across different touch points. It could be a WhatsApp touch point, or it sends a message. The different ways the agent will try and interact with the customer. It will get you insights, will be able to do retargeting, do some of those things around there. But the surfaces in the way they interact with that, the surfaces will be required because you're still dealing with a human at the end. But it may be agentic enabled surfaces and how that takes forward. Now, the second question is, again, the limited understanding that I hear about is largely AI is looked at as agents, LLMs, transformers, right? But there are many more AI models. There are computer vision AI models, right? There are image recognition AI models. There is deep learning models, machine learning models. There are many, many models as well. So when someone is trying to build, an agentic experience, or you're transforming this thing around there, and they're implementing AI, how should they go about building an understanding to not just end up with a LLM based implementation?
Well, when you start, right, you essentially think of it as a thin layer on top of an LLM. That's how everybody is starting out there. But when you start working with these platforms, you realize that alone will not cut the cloth, right? You have to build in some kind of an intelligent layer at your end to make it a much more enriching experience for your customer. You can't simply, think of providing your knowledge base to the AI agent, which is essentially working on top of, let's say, one of your GPT or your cloud models, and it will take care of everything. A more complicated model would essentially be how do you provide it the right tooling? How does it interact with other systems out there? And that requires you to learn more and more in terms of which model works better. So when we started out, we thought, okay, let's try out a reasoning model, right? For some of the use cases, and figured out that some of the reasoning models don't work very well for certain types of use cases. So it requires you to build a layer which essentially allows you to pick the right model for depending on the use case that is out there. And that is where the game is, right? And you have to keep experimenting and figure out which use case, which model works better, and which kind of tooling that you need to build as well, right? And honestly, that's something that as a startup goes through its life cycle, you keep improving and figuring out what works well. And that's where the entire game is in terms of which agentic platform works out better for your customers as compared to somebody else.
Interesting, but see, fundamentally what you're saying is use case based. You have to get your use cases right, and then determine what is the best kind of model to support the relevant use cases, and you go with that flow. And somebody like you who's actually building agentic experiences, you've gone into depth around there. But product leaders who are in incumbent companies who are still managing their typical web commerce platform, that they're managing their existing retail banking apps and things like that, for them to be able to understand there is some amount of miles to cover, then be able to implement agentic experience in a true form in the entirety of that. Very interesting.
Well, in the actually in the enterprise world, right? I think developers have adopted LLMs much quicker as compared to other people, right? Because it enables them to just become far more productive as what they were. Of course, there are security challenges in terms of just taking that LLM code and pasting it. It's proven, and you need to take the right precautions. That's the first thing that most enterprises are doing. The second is, of course, product managers. It's become very easy to write a PRD nowadays, right? I mean, you give it context and it will churn out a PRD. But at a very, I mean, if I were, I mean, to restart my career right now, I would essentially take how do I solve this customer problem using agents as the first principles approach, as compared to thinking, okay, how do I increase more and more app features to build and solve for this? So the entire approach, how you should be thinking about building customer experiences has changed, and I would encourage more and more product and growth folks to essentially think of adopting agents to reach out to customers wherever they are, right, and solve for the problems. And that comes only by just taking the leap of faith.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So we are at the end of our time together, and fantastic insights, Abhishek. But I would like to close the discussion with related to what you were just saying. If you were to give people two principles only when they are building products differently or they're building custom experiences differently, whether in context of agentic or in context of what WhatsApp can enable in today's world as well, what are two principles that they should keep in mind of how they should approach this?
One, I would say, just start, right? I mean, just start by taking a very simple use case in terms of which is your highest friction for your product, and think of how can you solve this using an agent, right? Instead of thinking how does the entire experience be built out by an agent, think of a very, very micro use case, just like you build out a product, right? I mean, you think of building it in cycles, think of a micro MVP, and then you think of adding more and more features. Similarly, in the agentic world, you have to start out by building a very small agent. Think of, let's say, a support use case. Okay, where are more and more support queries coming, and how can I build an agent to solve that by providing it could be on WhatsApp, it could be on your own app, and providing it the right context, right, to solve that problem. Once essentially the organization, I mean, what that would entail is you are getting the aha moment much quicker. You are getting to know how to build an agent. Secondly, as an organization, everybody sees value, right? You can see value very, very quickly if you in the new world, because immediately the conversations start happening on, let's say, on WhatsApp, and you would start seeing results, right, as compared to customers giving you feedback at a much later point of time. So the cycle of getting customer feedback has shrunk much quicker, I would say. So that is one. Second, I would say everybody need to start using more and more tools out there, whether it's N8N, whether it's learning about what are the new models that are coming up. How do I use that, right? Build any kind of applications. People are using Lavables and building out platforms. But the fundamental challenge out there is the first version, building on the first version is super easy. But how do you take it from that MVP level, okay, I have built an application, to building it production ready, right? How do you get from step 1 to step 10? And going through that process as leader, as the product guy, is going to be something that we all have to unlearn and start adopting, right? So start becoming a learning, what do you call, a magnet. Start learning up and picking up your new, I would say start picking up, new skills in terms of learning how to build agents is the second thing that I would advise everybody, including me. I've been never so excited about building agents. And every day I think about, okay, what is the new agent I want to build, or what is something that I want to break in terms of what my team is building, right? And that's been the most fascinating aspect about building agents.
Very, very interesting, Abhishek. And thank you for all the insights. Thank you for all the perspectives. In fact, this has been eye-opening for me in so many different ways. And the thanks doesn't just go from me, but very much from all the people who would have just watched this entire episode. and quite likely would be reaching out to you for understanding more about Peach and how that can enable their customer experiences and more fruitful conversations offline there. So thank you for your time, Abhishek. Everyone, stay tuned for the episode 2 as well. Take care.
Thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to any kind of future interaction that I have. Thank you so much.